Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to start off by thanking both Chairman Pallone and Chairman Tonko for their leadership in this area and for having this hearing. I'm honored to serve with them as we work to preserve and protect our planet. There is no issue more important than preventing and mitigating climate change and speeding our transition to a clean energy economy. Their leadership is helping to ensure that we create a healthy, sustainable planet for future generations, and I'm humbled to be their partner in that work. The best science says we need to completely stop adding climate pollution to the atmosphere by 2050, if not sooner. That is why I am fighting for bold action now. That is why I'll be introducing legislation along with Congresswoman Haaland, Congresswoman Dingell, Congressman Blumenauer, and Chairman Tonko to transition the United States to a 100% clean energy economy. 100% clean will protect public health and our environment, create well-paying, clean jobs, and strengthen our economy. It'll mitigate the impacts of climate change for all communities and all generations, especially those disproportionately impacted by its worst effects. As we engage in this important policy work, we must break the decades-long cycle of environmental injustice. For much of our history, unjust policies have caused many of our most vulnerable friends and neighbors to lead sicker, shorter, and more difficult lives. So we desperately need climate action, we desperately need climate justice, and we cannot have one without the other. Dr. Cleed, did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. A just cause and a fighting spirit do not guarantee success, and we have only one chance with climate change. We have to hit our marks. When it comes to reducing emissions, can you speak to what kind of processes, as distinct from technologies or policy choices, are most apt to move the needle? End goals are crucially important, but is there value in interim goals and in regularly scheduled checkups and progress reports?
Thank you, Congressman McEachin, and I just want to thank you and Congressman Grijalva for the way in which you have centered environmental justice in addressing this problem of climate change. In terms of the processes, I would say two things. Absolutely, we do need interim goals. This is not just about 2050, this is about where we get in the next decade as well. Because in that time, we have the opportunity to get very far in cutting emissions, and we have the opportunity also to make sure that we're protecting people from the climate impacts already underway. We need to engage directly with stakeholders and communities that have often been left on the sidelines of this challenge. Environmental justice communities have solutions to this problem, and they must have a seat at the table as we go about solving this problem. Just last week, there was a national a platform released by environmental justice groups and national environmental groups, an equitable and just national climate platform, which has many elements in it of what that process could look like and the vision for an equitable, centered climate platform.
Thank you. Doctor, once we make a formal commitment to act, how do we make real-time adjustments and keep ourselves on a path to success?
The opportunity we have here is if we get going in an ambitious way, the costs of technologies are falling all the time. Folks on the panel have pointed out wind, solar, we've seen double-digit cost declines year on year. We've seen battery storage costs come down. Just in the last decade, over a 70% reduction in wind and solar costs. So if we get started in an ambitious way, the opportunity we'll have is that when we get 5 years out or 10 years out, we know we can ratchet up ambition because the cost of these technologies will have fallen.
Thank you. You have said that done right, an economy-wide low-carbon energy transition can also help address long-standing inequities for low-income communities and communities of color. I need you to expound upon that. Is there a danger that we end up with climate action in the absence of climate justice, or vice versa? And if so, how can we best avoid those dangers?
Solving climate change in an equitable way won't happen by accident. We have to have that intentionality from the beginning to center equity. We know that as we cut CO2 emissions, we have the opportunity to cut other co-pollutants that are causing near-term public health burdens in these communities, from mercury, from particulate matter, from sulfur dioxide emissions, NOx emissions. So the opportunity we have is making sure that we're making emission cuts and prioritizing emission cuts in communities that are overburdened by these other kinds of co-pollutants, even as we cut carbon dioxide pollutants. The other opportunity we have is to make sure that the benefits of clean energy are accruing directly to these communities, that they have access to these modern clean technologies, the efficient technologies that can save people money, as well as make sure that they too will clean up the air and water in their communities.
Thank you. I thank the witnesses, and I thank you, Madam Chair. I yield back.